Like our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, developer Insomniac Games has rarely taken itself too seriously. Its protagonists range from talking dragons to gun-toting Lombaxes to punk rock sanitation workers. But also like Spider-Man, there is a wealth of ability, creativity, and wisdom beneath that playful veneer. Throughout the years, Insomniac has bounced between 3D platformers, third-person action games, first-person shooters, and open-world playgrounds. Its portfolio is as colorful as it is diverse. Yet in the grand scheme of things, the studio's expertise has gone largely underappreciated. Insomniac's 1998 breakout hit Spyro sold almost 5 million copies. The first Ratchet & Clank also sold well in 2002, breaking 3.5 million in sales and establishing a new IP. As the years rolled by, however, the company's sales continually dropped off. None of the games performed poorly by any means, but Insomniac struggled to regain the clout it had earned on the PS1. The studio explored a darker tone with 2006's Resistance: Fall of Man, but as was the case with Ratchet, the franchise sold fewer copies with each new release. By the time Insomniac launched Resistance 3 and its decent co-op shooter Fuse, we had already seen PS3 standouts such as MGS4, God of War 3, Gran Turismo 5, and the blockbuster Uncharted saga. That's not to mention third-party games such as Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. Although Insomniac played a crucial role in the PS3's lifespan, it's since taken a historical backseat to the juggernauts of its time. Then came the newest console generation, and in 2014, the first Insomniac title made exclusively for a Microsoft platform. Sunset Overdrive is colorful and abrasive. It's unashamed of its goofy overtones. It's also an Insomniac game in every sense, with thrilling platforming, inventive weapons, and a refusal to take itself seriously. It was a critical darling and, in my humble opinion, one of the best games on Xbox One. But this was a new IP, early in a console generation, on a platform whose sales had yet to gain momentum. Despite Sunset Overdrive's high purchase rate for Xbox One owners, it was no commercial hit. 4 years later, it's hailed as a cult classic. And in those intervening 4 years, Insomniac Games would double down on its mantra of constant evolution. It experimented with VR, creating a competitive spellcasting game, a 3D brawler, and the fantastic horror title Edge of Nowhere. The studio also teamed up with retailer GameStop on Song of the Deep, a Metroidvania that doubled as an outreach effort to GameStop's customers. Insomniac even branched into cinema in 2016. It released the Ratchet & Clank film to coincide with the Ratchet & Clank remake on PS4. The latter marked the company's first outing on Sony's current console and a chance to learn the PS4's architecture for the game it had planned next. Throughout its history, Insomniac Games has been no stranger to success. It's been a staple of Sony's catalog since 1998. It released one of the Xbox One's most beloved titles to date. Its games have frequently sold in the millions, and aside from several middling releases, found almost universal acclaim. And through it all, the studio has managed to remain independent. But in the conversation about respected AAA developers, Insomniac is often overshadowed by the likes of Rockstar, Naughty Dog, Blizzard, Nintendo, or CD Projekt Red. A few months ago, Insomniac CEO Ted Price told the LA Times that the studio has always seen themselves as somewhat of an underdog. And in a recent chat, creative director Brian Intihar told me the same thing. So I guess it's fitting that Insomniac Games is finally getting the spotlight it deserves with one of pop culture's most famous underdogs, Peter Parker, the superhero toiling beneath a mask for a city that often takes him for granted. A few years ago, you might remember the rumors circulating about the next Spider-Man game. According to the supposed leak, Sucker Punch, the developer behind the Infamous series, was working on the Marvel property. At E3 2016, however, Insomniac announced that it was behind the wheel. The story that followed was one of mythical proportions. Marvel, in need of a talented AAA studio, approached Insomniac. It gave the team carte blanche to create a game based on any Marvel superhero. Despite initial resistance from Insomniac executives, who were reluctant to work with an established property, the decision soon became unanimous. The team wanted to work with Spider-Man. So, with Sony's backing as the publisher, Insomniac set to work bringing the storied hero to life. Numerous companies had attempted to do so, and throughout the course of the young medium, only a few had succeeded. If you're watching this, then you now know Insomniac was more than ready for the challenge. It released a game that, by most accounts, shouldn't exist. It's thrilling, polished, and has an attention to detail that holds up to the most scrutinous of internet fans. It surpassed 2 decades worth of Spider-Man games, and it did so with the constant trust of one of the most lucrative entertainment properties today. In the aforementioned conversation, Intihar also told me that he's not just proud of leading development on a great Spider-Man game, or even a great Marvel game. More than anything, he's proud of creating a fantastic Insomniac game. You can see that DNA in every aspect of Spidey's world. The movement and traversal harken back to Sunset Overdrive. The gadgets and scientific minigames pay homage to Ratchet & Clank. The weapon wheel might remind you of Resistance, and the overall color palette, while obviously inspired by Spider-Man's usual appearance, also calls to mind the art direction of Insomniac's whole portfolio. The same qualities that defined Insomniac for so long are finally being touted on the main stage, so to speak, and it's encouraging to see the studio get the respect it has long deserved. Insomniac's goals go even higher than that, however. According to Intihar, Insomniac wanted this rendition of Spider-Man to be the Iron Man of Marvel video games.
Some funny thing that Marvel and I talked a lot about is this is the Iron Man. This is the one that's going to start it off.
Yep.
This is the one that's going to...
Like the 2008 film starring Robert Downey Jr., Intihar hoped Spider-Man on PS4 would force people to take future Marvel games seriously. By all accounts, it seems Insomniac succeeded. Spider-Man PS4 is the fastest-selling Spider-Man game ever, it is the best-selling Marvel-branded game of all time, and as of this morning, it is the fastest-selling first-party PlayStation title. It's raised expectations for future Marvel titles and once again cements Insomniac as an elite AAA developer. Between its new friendship with Marvel, its ongoing success with Sony, and a massive blockbuster hit under its belt, I'm willing to bet that Insomniac's days as the underdog are long gone.